The boarding area looked like a luxury lounge. Bright lights, rolling suitcases, expensive jackets, and travelers sipping $5 coffee as if it were nothing. Near a pillar stood Mrs. Helen Moore, 78 years old, wearing a faded dress and holding a wrinkled plastic bag with both hands. She stepped forward, hopeful, searching for her gate. That's when a uniformed employee rushed toward her and said loudly, "Ma'am, this is not a place for beggars. You need to leave the boarding area." Helen froze, ashamed. What he didn't know was that the beggar he pushed away was the mother of the millionaire who owned the entire airport network. Helen spent her life working double shifts, cleaning offices, ironing clothes, cooking for families who barely remembered her name. Her oldest son, Richard, grew up watching her fight exhaustion just to keep the lights on. He promised her, "One day, Mom, you'll fly anywhere you want." Years passed. Richard became the CEO and millionaire owner of Moore Aviation Holdings, the company operating that airport. Helen had never flown, but today she would finally see the ocean. Before taking off, though, she would face a humiliation she never imagined. The boarding area was filled with business travelers, laptops open, stylish backpacks lined on seats as if they owned the place. Helen stood quietly, trying not to bother anyone. Her plastic bag held everything she needed: her boarding pass, her blood pressure pills, and a small piece of homemade cake wrapped in a napkin. She approached an empty chair. Before she touched it, Evan, the employee, blocked her way. He scanned her clothes from head to toe and shook his head. "Ma'am, you can't stay here. This area is for passengers, not for people asking for things." Helen blinked, confused. "I'm traveling, sweetheart. My son, he bought my tick." Evan cut her off. "You can't approach people here. If you don't have a boarding pass, you need to leave." Two travelers whispered while staring. "Poor thing, but she can't be here." "That bag says everything." Helen pressed the plastic bag to her chest, trying to disappear inside it. "I do have a boarding pass. I just don't know how to use it." Her voice wavered. Her hands shook. She could feel every stare on her back. Evan pointed toward the exit. "Ma'am, I'm not repeating myself. Please step out." But across the boarding area, a man in a navy blue suit stopped mid-conversation. Richard Moore froze when he recognized the way his mother held the bag, exactly like she used to when she was nervous and walking him to school. He narrowed his eyes. "Is that Mom?" Without hesitation, he started walking fast, then faster, then running. Evan was still pressuring Helen when a shadow fell over them. She lifted her head. Her son stood right behind the employee. "Mom," Richard asked softly. Helen's lip trembled. "I didn't want trouble. I thought they were sending me away. I just want to see the ocean, Richard." He placed a hand on her shoulder, then faced Evan. "You told my mother to leave." Evan swallowed hard. "Sir, I didn't know she was—" Richard raised a hand. "You didn't need to know who she was. You just needed basic respect." The crowd went silent. Even the airport announcements seemed to freeze. Richard continued. "You looked at her clothes and decided she didn't belong here. You saw a plastic bag and assumed she was here to beg. But what you didn't see—" He turned slightly and lifted his mother's hand gently. "Is the woman who worked herself sick so I could finish school, so I could build the company that pays your salary, and the salary of everyone standing here." Evan turned pale. At that moment, Ms. Blake, the airport director, hurried over. "Mr. Moore, we're deeply—" He cut her short, calm but firm. "Don't apologize. Correct it." Then he faced Evan. "You'll undergo full training on passenger treatment. If you learn, you stay. If not, you won't speak to another traveler in this airport again." The boarding area was silent enough to hear someone's suitcase rolling in the distance. Richard held his mother's plastic bag gently as if it were made of glass. "Mum, breathe. You're not leaving. You're boarding." She gave a timid smile. "Richard, people were staring. I felt so small." He shook his head. "You're the greatest person I know." Then he turned to everyone watching and spoke with quiet force. Everything you see here, this airport, these gates, these flights, it exists because of her, not because of me." Passengers lowered their eyes. "This woman cleaned offices before sunrise, ironed shirts until her hands burned, cooked for strangers so I could study. If you're flying today, it's because she paid the price long before any of you bought a ticket." Helen wiped her eyes, embarrassed and proud all at once. Ms. Blake finally spoke. "Mrs. Moore, we'll escort you to the gate. You'll board first." Richard corrected her. "She'll board when she wants. She's not a VIP, she's my mother." He took Helen's arm and led her toward the front seats of the lounge. Every step she took felt heavier with emotion and lighter with dignity. Helen sat near the window, staring at the plane outside. "It's huge, Richard, bigger than I imagined." He smiled. "You deserve this moment more than anyone." After a pause, she whispered, "You weren't embarrassed of me? With my old dress? And this little bag?" Richard squeezed her hand. "Embarrassed. Mom, this bag has more history than every briefcase in this airport. You're the reason." Her eyes shimmered. The humiliation faded, replaced by the dignity her son restored. Workers around them watched in silence, moved, and you, watching this story. If you saw someone being pushed aside because of their appearance, would you stay silent or step forward? Comment below. What does your mother mean to you?